Welcome, everyone, to our third installment of BG Bios. Hello, hello. We're glad to have you as always. I'm Caleb, or Duban in the server. I'll be King Nerdboy if I talk in the Twitch chat. Sorry for the three names, very confusing. I'll be your host this evening. We started BG Bios with a Meet the Mods sub-series, which will continue tonight with yet another one of our server moderators. If you have questions through the interview, drop them in chat, and I'll add them. I'll add as many of them as possible as they are appropriate. Let's get right into it. I'll start with the basics. What are your name and pronouns?
My name is Mike Chin. Pronoun he, his.
All right. What game are you playing on stream today?
Fall Guys. It's the new hotness, right? So gotta get these costumes, man.
Very popular. Synergistic is excited about it in the chat, so you've already got
Kyle just wants me
fan.
to. Synergistic just wants to watch me die like I am right now.
Fair enough. So we're going to start, as is the custom, after a few of these, with some rapid fire icebreakers. So for these, Mike, just say the first thing that comes to mind. I've got 3 sets of them, like always, so you get a chance to breathe in between them. That makes it easier for me to make you answer them quickly. So are you ready?
I am ready.
All right. In an FPS, what do you take? Shotgun, sniper, machine gun?
Sniper.
What's the ultimate generation of Pokemon?
Johto.
Support, tank, or DPS?
Support.
Which is better for gaming, PC or console?
PC.
What's the best game console if you go that route?
PS4. Not right. Switch. I used to say PlayStation, but not Switch. I don't play Switch.
Let's see how many people get angry in the chat about that one. I'm gonna pause for rage. Pause for rage. I need a pause for rage screen. All right, perfect. That's the first set, the shortest one. Yeah, Headnisk says in the chat the correct answer is the 64. So, all right,
sorry, Headnisk.
Take a deep breath. What's the worst movie you've ever seen?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't.
Say something.
Avatar, Blue People. I don't know.
What's the best?
Avatar: The Last Airbender. Actually, now that I think about it, go.
What's the best dance track?
Rain on Me.
What's the best place in Boston to go dancing?
The alley with the gamers.
Toilet paper, over or under?
Over.
What's the most annoying kind of insect?
Spider.
What's the best way to travel?
Plane.
What's the best color to paint your bedroom?
Blue.
What's the cutest board game you've ever played?
Oh, Takedo.
All right. Can take another deep breath. Oni provided us with live action Lion King.
I've never seen it, Oni. But I know it's on Disney Plus now, isn't it?
You've ever seen. It probably is. I don't actually know. All right. On to our final set of these. Take a deep breath. Get ready to answer quickly. What's your favorite mixed drink?
Cosmo.
What's the best breakfast food?
Cereal.
What's the worst salad topping?
Kale.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
How do you take your coffee?
Cream and sugar.
Pie or cake?
Both.
What's the best pie filling?
Strawberry.
All right, good answer. That will wrap up our rapid fire questions for a little bit of icebreaker there. So I hope you enjoyed those.
How much rage is in the chat?
Cake. Not as much as you'd think.
Oh.
Only a little bit of fury that the Nintendo 64 isn't the best, but we take it where we can find it. So let's start talking about the story of you, Mike. Where were you born? Where did you? The story of you. We'll put it in a nice little binding. Make this a book.
Yes.
Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I was born in Queens, New York, but I lived almost all of my life in Western Mass in a small town called Longmeadow. Um, Interestingly enough, I probably spent like a day of my life in Queens, New York, but that's where I was born.
Fair enough. Interesting. Did your parents live there at the time, or
No,
were they
so
visiting?
Oh no, funny story. So my parents used to live in Queens, New York, like Flushing, New York. But my two older sisters, who are 8 and 7 years older than me, they live part of their life actually in Queens, New York, as like babies. But when my parents moved to Western Massachusetts in like 1990, my mom had my third sister with her, like this local Western Mass OBGYN, and she hated the experience. She hated it. So when they had me, I'm the youngest, my mom was like, we're going back to my Asian OBGYN in Flushing. He's the best. So when I was born, they drove all the way out there to have me born, and then I went home back to Western Mass.
So your parents lived in Longmeadow and they drove to Queens so that your mother could go to OBGYN there to have you.
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's unique. How would you let's talk a little bit about your parents. How would you describe your parents to someone who doesn't know them?
Well, recently they've kind of gone through like Benjamin Button's the guy that reverses in age, right? Yeah. So they're like reversing in age. All my life they were like super strict, kind of typical Asian parents, but like in recent years they just like kind of have been chilling out finally, so that's good. But they're pretty crazy and colorful people.
How is that? What sort of crazy color?
What sort of crazy color? Like everywhere. My mom is really into conspiracy theories right now. My dad is reveling in retirement, like he loves it, so he's living the good life. He's really into technology now. He loves like YouTube and everything. Granted, my father has never used a computer in his life. Like when we owned a business, like no computers, nothing. There was a cash register, but when we worked there, I wasn't allowed to like price things using a calculator. I had to do it by hand, like, and with the math. So back then, Massachusetts like sales tax was like 5%, so that was easy. But then like going to like 6.55 and 7.25, I was like, we need to get some calculators in here because I can't do that in my math. It's gonna be all wrong. So yeah, he's super into that now. My mom is again obsessed with everything on her iPhone, like every possible, probably now illegal app thanks to Trump, like WeChat or like Line or whatever it is that they use now. But yeah, they're just doing great.
Gotcha. Fair enough. How many siblings do you have?
I have 3 siblings. They're all sisters. So I have
Okay.
3 older sisters.
So
And
you're the
growing
last.
up was so much fun.
How did you get along with your sisters? First of all, what's the like age difference about?
My oldest sister, it's 8, 7, and 3. So I'm closest in age. Actually, my youngest sister and I lived together for 3 years while she was at law school and I was finishing undergrad. So we and her are pretty close. But I mean, growing up, me and my oldest sister fought all the time, like all the fucking time. And even like not until after she had her baby, my nephew, who's now 9, did we like start to get along better. But as adults, we're all pretty close. I mean, we they all live within like 2 hours of each other, so we see each other quite often.
Gotcha. Cool. How many nieces and nephews are there? Just the one nephew, or are there more?
I have 2 nephews, which is the universe's great cosmic joke on my mom. Because we're just convinced that this next generation is going to be all boys, based on the trends right now. But yeah, my oldest nephew is 9, born right before I went to college, and then my youngest nephew is a year and 7 months, so a little bit over a year and a half now.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
I did promise everyone in advance of this, including you, that I would get all the dirt today. So who's
All
the
the
favorite?
dirt.
Who's the favorite sister?
You mean from my like who do I like the most, or
Yeah.
who's from my
Yeah.
parents' perspective?
No.
Oh
Who do you like the
God.
most?
Oh,
Commit this
all my
to video
sisters.
record.
All of my sisters have their own problems.
I like that your position is that you dislike all of them equally.
I don't
That you
have a
like all of them
favorite.
equally.
I don't have a favorite. I mean, once upon a time, I probably had a favorite, but today, we all have our problems.
Fair enough. Where did you go to school?
I went to Boston University, so I've been in Boston for a very, very long time now.
Okay. What was your sort of elementary high school experience like? Was that all in
God.
Longmeadow?
Longmeadow is like the Newton of Western Mass, but less diverse. Let's just say that. But like typical, super privileged, predominantly white, like suburb. I was like probably one of 3 Asian people in my class. Our high school was probably about 1,000 people max, so my high school class was like 220 people, maybe. Yeah. So it wasn't like huge, but like typical high school experience. I was a band geek, but luckily the band geeks didn't like kind of had a good reputation in the school, so it wasn't that bad. It's funny because like I kind of rebuilt my entire like social experience while I was in high school. Like when we were going from like 8th grade to high school, I had a group of friends who when we went to high school decided to go to like private schools in the area instead. So like half my friends are gone, like my closer friends are gone from middle school to high school, but that was a really interesting experience to have to go from that.
Gotcha. So you went to the public high school?
I went to the public high school. I actually in elementary, like I remember you mentioned elementary. In elementary school, I actually went to a Catholic school for K through 3. Most of my sisters went from K through 4 and started public school in 5th grade. But my youngest sister like kind of fell a little bit behind in math. Granted, math is not her strong suit, even like today. Like she's the black sheep of the family for that. But she was there. My parents started to get concerned because I was like right behind her. So my parents took me out of Catholic school a year early. So I started public school in 4th grade because they were like, oh, the Catholic school curriculum is probably falling behind. It's their fault, typical parent. Like, it's not our kids' fault. It's the school's fault.
Got it. So did you go to Catholic school because you were raised Catholic, or it was just a better school?
No. My parents thought the Catholic schools were stricter and would teach us, discipline and like respect, like things like that, better than public school at an early age. So, so that's why my parents picked Catholic school first. So definitely was not raised Catholic. I once fell asleep because in Catholic school they used to make us go to mass during school hours. It feels like a special Christian holiday, or like at least once a month. So I once fell asleep in mass, and the principal like called my parents, and like they're like, you shouldn't do that. He needs more blah blah blah. And my parents were like really mad at me on the phone. And then when I got home from school, they're like, just don't do that again, okay?
That's beautiful. I have to ask, I'm always kind of curious, what is it like to go to Catholic school when you're not Catholic? First of all, was that like,
oh my God,
was it the kind of Catholic school that like half the people aren't Catholic, or is it the kind of Catholic school where you were like the only ones who weren't Catholic?
It was kind of both, because I think a lot of these families had like followed Catholicism, but like kids don't really care, and like when you grow up, and especially my generation beyond, like religion didn't really play a huge role in like our upbringing. So there are people who will keep with it, and there are people who didn't really take you seriously. But as a kid, they're like, oh yeah, our family goes to this church, and so they had social circles that I was definitely not a part of.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Um, what was it like? What was it in general like going to mass when that wasn't something that had ever been part of your like family culture?
Boring. Boring. Like, you have no idea. Like, we had religion classes, and like, yes, I understood the basics of Catholicism, but like, it was boring, man. Like, you're just like, I don't believe in any of this. I don't really know what he's talking about half the time. I mean, half the kids were like that too. They don't really understand it because, like, especially when you're younger. But like, by like second and third grade, like where they've had like their first communion and stuff, they understand it, and you're just like, snooze.
Fair enough. Both Eric and the Gamers chat will back you up on the fact that it's boring. So
Oh my God, it's
I got
so
a lot
boring.
of I got a lot of affirmation on that point.
Yeah, and I like, my town was also predominantly Jewish, so I had a lot of friends, Jewish friends, and I've been to like a seder and like, to temple, and that's more exciting than mass, to be honest. So I don't know what it is, but yeah.
I mean, a Seder does have food and Mass doesn't. Well, except the body and blood
That's
of
true.
Christ, which we're not going to count. So fair enough. Did you enjoy your time in high school, middle school, high school? Was that fun for you, or are you the kind of kid that just wanted out?
If I like reflect back on, I do say I miss some of my like social aspects at the end of my high school years, because like I had some friends, and like we used to hang out a lot and we were pretty close. So I miss them. I don't see them that often anymore. They're scattered across the country, mostly on like the West Coast, but there are some East Coasters that I see sometimes. But yeah, middle school probably not so much. I don't know. I compared to other like parts of my life, I don't miss it because I'm just like, oh damn, life is so much better after like high school. But yeah, I wouldn't say they were terrible that I don't miss them, but I would say I would prefer not to go back to them.
Gotcha. Fair enough. Um, so So pivoting just a little bit, because I want to talk about this while we're still talking about you growing up, and
Cool.
I'll offer a little bit of full disclosure because this is something that I talked to Michael about before, and that's going to be obvious from the way I sort of frame it. But you've talked that we could talk a little bit about you being an American with Chinese heritage. So are your parents, did they move here, or their parents?
So my grandparents and my parents are both immigrants, so they came here at the same time.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was it like to be raised by parents that grew up in a different country from the one where they were raising you? Was that ever something that you noticed was particular?
Oh yeah, I mean, my mom and dad tell us stories about the old country all the time, like, and how like privileged and like how privileged we are to have the things we have in this country, and like not have to deal with some of the the hardships of the old country. Like my mom grew up really poor. My dad grew up on a farm, so very different lifestyle and like expectations of where your life will go. Because like for my dad, it was probably just like be a farmer for the rest of his life, and like my mom is probably like, since she grew up in the city instead of like the countryside, it was she had a very few options, but a lot of it like involved her like marrying rich and stuff. So yeah, it was absolutely different. Like we spoke a different language at home, and like we grew up middle class, so like a lot of the people in my town are like other upper middle class, and my family was more like lower middle class for a lot of the life. So yeah, it was very very different, and we were just had different values from a lot of the kids like our age, right? Like they grew up very differently from us.
Gotcha. You did mention that you said, I think, that you were one of only 2 or 3 Asian people in your high school, right?
Yep.
So that was an experience that you didn't share with most of the people around you, I take it.
Oh yeah, absolutely not. Like, yeah, Lunar New Year is a big thing in my family. My parents really never pulled us out of school for that, but we didn't like have the day off. Whereas we had like every Jewish holiday off because the majority of the school would be out because a lot of kids were Jewish. So it was like just very different, yeah, culturally. Um, and like we ate dinner much later than most families. It was interesting. Like, yeah, just some of those tiny things, and like, people went to mass, but then we have our like own cultural kind of practices. So it was, yeah, very very different.
Gotcha. Um, how did you experience growing into sort of your own identity based on a combination of your heritage and your parents' identity in the world that you grew up in and lived in?
Um, I guess that's a hard one to answer a little bit. Just like, I guess the main thing was my mom, and like both my parents in a lot of the ways encouraged us to like assimilate well to American culture, but there was a huge emphasis in my in my youth to like also recognize and identify with our cultural heritage being Chinese. So like take the aspects of whichever that you like the most of American culture, but also recognize your ancestral history. So like that was like a balancing act that was kind of tough to do when you're younger because you want to be like all the other kids and like be quote unquote normal, which is totally overrated, by the way. Um, but yeah, like so, I had to deal with that, and like also the challenges that come with being just like an immigrant with parents who don't necessarily like understand the system. Like the America is like the system, and like from a young age we were helping my parents like figure out benefits and like health insurance and things like that. So you know, and then other kids just like, I have no idea what you're talking about. They're like, my parents like, I don't want to do any of that. Kind of an
Sure.
alienating feeling, but helped us grow up fast.
That makes sense. Um, so I'll sort of segue and then I'll tie some of this back together. But out of curiosity, did you have a formal coming out in your life, or was that something that happened gradually for you? What's the
Oh,
story
it's
there?
like to my family or like to my social, like my friends.
Both. How
I
did
guess
it happen
okay.
in both cases?
I guess I like with my friends. It wasn't like a formal coming out. I guess like when I started college, I was like, I'm gonna be a little bit more open and like explore like who I really am and like see how people react to it and things like that. Like, and so like when I went to college, like I didn't really hide it, the fact that I was gay, but and I told people, and that kind of helped me kind of build the confidence to like come out to people closer to me or like old friends and things like that, because it was like a really nice time, right, to just kind of start fresh. People don't know who you are or who you've been in the past, and like you can just be yourself and kind of use it as like a social experiment or like a clinical trial of how is it going to go with the people closer in your life and things like that, right?
Sure.
So that was a really cool and unique opportunity that I just kind of capitalized on, and it helped me build my confidence up as a queer person, and like being able to tell people and be open. um, and it could have been a really negative experience and my life would be completely different, right? So I lucked out in that I got a pretty positive experience. So um, and so then next I told my sisters, because they're really supportive, and at this point I was in college, so this is like the turning point of like kind of me and my sisters actually starting to get along better, even with the age gap. So yeah, so like it was a little bit easier since I have my youngest sister is a lesbian. So like she had already come out to them by that time, to my other sisters. So, and they were supportive, and so I didn't think they were going to be any different. But I just wanted to be sure with myself that like this is who I am, and you kind of had to have that kind of conversation with yourself. Um, Told them, they're great. They're like, oh, we kind of assumed that, which is not the greatest thing to tell someone who's coming out to you, but whatever. People aren't perfect. And so, um, yeah, so I told my sisters, and I didn't tell my parents. I didn't tell my parents for the longest time. didn't tell my parents until I actually graduated from college. So after graduating, um, I told my mom actually. Well, I tried to tell my dad, and this is where things kind of get a little twisty in my coming out story. But I told me and my sister actually both came out to my mom at the same time, and that day we actually like it was funny because we were living at home for a little while after she finished law school and um I finished undergrad because it was like I was actually working 20 minutes from home. My like office was there, so I actually moved back home after graduating, not thinking this through. um, but we sat down at the table and mom and dad were there, and my dad's kind of like has a hard time hearing. He's old. My dad's like 67, 68, so he's not old for a parent who has kids, my age and up. But he's just really bad at hearing. And so we like said, we're she's enraged. She's saying horrible things out of her mouth to me and my sister. And we kind of made a pact that with my mom, a promise with my mom that we wouldn't tell my father. And it's a totally weird situation where I'm okay with that. Like, and so like I'm out to like everyone except my father and like maybe my extended family that I don't really care about.
Gotcha. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. So and we can dive more into that. It's just like that was a weird piece of my like family coming out story. Is like my dad still doesn't know, and it's something we tiptoe around a little bit, and it's more like we would rather him find out in a different way, I guess. We can talk more about it if you want to hear about it.
It's more about if you want to talk. This is
okay, story. Yeah, like I mean,
do you want to tell me?
Oh yeah, sure. I love telling this story because there's been like a lot of like there's been like a very split response between my friends who are like talking about this about, and like one of my very best friends, I love him for the world, like the day I came out and like my mom said all these horrible things to me, which by the way my mom is cool with it now, by the way. She's turned it around, and Good. she even offered to, like, when I used to do the like pride parade marching for my old company, she even volunteered to like, I'll go march in pride with you guys. So cute. Unfortunately, she had to bring my nephew to a birthday party that day that she promised him that she would bring him to. So she didn't get to go, but she was so sorry. She's like, I promised your nephew. I was like, whatever, mom. It's not a big deal.
I think we'll allow that excuse.
Yeah, I'll allow that excuse.
Might be one of the few that I'll take.
So back to like my dad. So my dad and I like never had a relationship growing up. Like the older I got and like the older he got, like but like my family owned a restaurant for a long time in my hometown, and he ran and managed it for almost the entire time. But back in the day, it was like my grandfather and his brothers. My grandfather has 8 brothers, so like they kind of collaborated. My dad my dad has only one sibling, so like not a lot of familiar help by the time like I got older, and like we just started like not being able to keep up with the business. So growing up, I didn't see my dad a lot. We didn't really have like a real relationship, and I just never felt really close with my dad until after I finished school. So when it came time for me to like come out, my mom like made a really kind of what's important point to me about kind of respecting my dad and kind of his kind of backwards beliefs, but that's the way he was raised, and he never like received a formal education, and just a lot of cultural barriers and like social things that he's been shielded from for he's been in this country for like 40 years. So my mom was like, he's getting close to retiring, and like we're at the time, he was also really upset that my sister got divorced. So my sister got divorced. In Chinese families, that's like a big no-no, and it's a disgrace on, especially if you like gave away your daughter. Right? In Chinese culture, it's like, oh, we give away our daughters to their husband's family. So that's a big no-no and like big shame. What we call face. He felt like he had no face, and that was like a big deal for my dad and his family and like how he grew up. So like if I like kind of came out to him, he would also like go through this whole depressive phase, and I didn't really want to see that. Number one, I was like living at home, by the way, so I saw him every day, and I don't know if I like really wanted to do that to him. And I know it's like not me doing it to him per se, but like he's doing it to himself. Yes, obviously. Um, but for me, it was like if he doesn't know, it's not gonna like ruin me, and I'm not gonna like lose sleep over it. I'm not, I'm not gonna be, and I wasn't like in a relationship at the point where like it was super important that my dad know. Like I wasn't getting married or anything like that. So, or having children or things like that. So I like took it to like with my mom and discussed it, and like it was fine. Like I just was like, this is better this way, in my opinion. Like my dad can enjoy retirement, like kind of like like blissfully in ignorance, right? And I'm not gonna lose sleep over it. It's like so. It's just really like it's out of respect for my dad or like what he's like went through growing up to try and like support me and my sisters and like just working really endlessly. Like my dad is like the hardest worker ever, and like even though he has very backward beliefs and I'm not out to him, like he's still like a hero of mine because he just like has done so much and like just kind of without like complaining, like never really asking for more. So it's really like a cultural thing and I just respect my dad too much to kind of you know have him waste a few years of his like golden age, like his golden years, to like that, and part of it also I'm hoping that he'll like kind of self-realize, just because like I've never brought home a girl, Dad, like, and he still says things like, when are you gonna bring home a girlfriend? I'm just like, I'm too busy, things like that, but I'm literally running out of excuses at this point. But like it's funny because like I have brought my boyfriends home to like, and like my mom and my sisters knew like they're my boyfriend, things like that. So like, but then like my dad like will start to ask like if I don't bring him with me, like where's your friend? And it's like, Dad, you can't be seriously asking me this, right? Like you have to know somewhere in your mind that we are in a romantic relationship, but you're just like I'm waiting for him to kind of self-actualize at the same time. But like there's definitely hints that he kind of knows already, and so like I'm not super sweating about it.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Do you
it's a very
ever like?
interesting dynamic.
Do you sort of like? Do you feel like you want him to figure it out, or are you happy whichever way it goes?
You know what? I'm happy whichever way it goes. If he figures it out, it kind of like lets him reconcile and like he'll be able to talk to people who already know before he confronts me about it. Like he'll probably talk to my mom about it if it ever like pops into his mind to like ask like without having him seem weird or whatever. My mom like probably knows it's coming, like if it is coming, but but if he doesn't, then whatever. I'll probably tell him eventually, even if he doesn't like come out with it, and like when something really important comes, like if I ever get married or decide to have kids or whatever, buy a house with someone.
Fair enough. I think everyone has to decide to tell their story in their way and their time. So
Absolutely.
that makes a lot of sense. All right. Well, and so I'll ask this, even though I think we've touched on it, but to sort of wrap this part of the topic up, how do you think growing up, all of those pieces sort of came together for you? So we've talked about you being, you living with your Chinese heritage and being raised by parents who didn't grow up here, and like your journey to come out in sort of various ways. How those are a lot of, I suppose there are a lot of like places to have identity crises or to learn who you were. How do you think that all kind of came together for you? Do you feel like it came together?
I think it came together well. I mean, like, again, it was kind of unique because like we were just kind of like forging our own way, and so like having parents who didn't like grow up here and like didn't really have like the cultural influence of their peers, because my parents aren't super social people either. We just grew up very differently. Like a lot of the things that are like strict or important in a lot of households just didn't kind of fly in my household. Like or like just didn't matter. Like um, you know, like be like I guess like a recent example is like phones. People are always on their phones, and at my house, like at my parents' house, it like doesn't matter because my parents are also on their phones. Like we just kind of love each other's company, just being there and being around each other. We don't have to like be doing like an activity together in order to like be like, oh, this is like special family bonding time that we have to like play a game or do something like that, right? Like we'll just sit in our living room and like be on our phones or be watching TV independently, and it'll just be like a nice time. So like things like that. Like I never grew up like, oh, like I didn't really have a curfew as a kid. Like we like you know Thanksgiving was like super fun because we just like kind of watch football and like in our pajamas all day, like almost being lazy just because like having a restaurant, we worked the night before like till like 2 in the morning, so like we always did like something super casual for Thanksgiving, like not have a ton of people over, like it's just us and like things like that. So we have very unique like family like traditions and like family practices that like a lot of like people I know don't like. They're like, my mom would like die if we did that. Like those things. So it's a really unique perspective. And like we can also I also draw on like the experiences some of my peers talk about, to like kind of balance out like what, like if I were to raise a child, like what would be important for them, for me, you know.
Gotcha. What are some of the elements that would be important if you were raising a kid?
My parents always like really emphasize like education, like college education, but like just because like didn't have the chance, and like they're like, that's a good job, and that's something has changed like probably in our generation where like a college degree means like diddly squat. So like I think it is important to get an education and like be educated, like learn, always be aspiring to learn, but it doesn't have to be college. Like you don't have to. You can do something you love and like still be successful. Like my parents were always like, you have to be an engineer, a doctor, a lawyer, something like that. And that's kind of like the influence we grew up with when it came to like career aspirations, things like that. But like for me, like I don't really care. Like do something, be passionate about something, learn about it, and see where it takes you.
Fair enough. I think that's a good outlook to have. So you went to BU. What did you study at BU?
I studied biomedical engineering.
Okay. So you graduated with a degree in that?
Yes, I have a BS and BME from BU.
Gotcha.
But I don't do anything related. Well, it's related to biomedical engineering, but it's not like what I use my degree for.
Gotcha. Fair
That's why
enough.
I'm smiling.
Well, what do you do? Tell us about that.
So I'm an IT manager for a pharmaceutical company. So that's why it's kind of related, because still working in biotech field, but doing more like systems administration and like implementation for the IT team.
Gotcha. Lynette is excited in the chat about the BU College of
Are you
Engineering.
are you Lene? Are you a BU eng fellow person? I have no idea what you're like.
He is indeed.
Alum? Oh, is he?
I'll field that question for him. He can answer in the chat as
Yeah.
well if you'd like, but he is.
Is mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, software engineering?
Software.
Or not software. It was called computer engineering.
Computer
There we go.
engineering. Okay. Yeah. Almost certainly. So I flipped pages at the wrong time. Do you enjoy your job? You happy with what you're doing right now?
Yeah, I do. Well, this job is like fairly new to me. I've been doing like that type of work for a while. I was a consultant for 4 years. And then I actually recently, I started this job last June. So I've been at my job for a little bit over a year, but yeah, I love what I do. It's pretty cool. My company is like a small precision medicine company. But we have we have a big impact on like rare diseases and like rare stages of cancer. So yeah, it's the best part of my job is I'm doing what I love, and I'm also like staying local. So like I quit consulting because I really wanted to stay more local, and like when you're a traveling consultant, every weekend is planned 4 weeks in advance. Like it sucks. And I really hated that feeling of having to like just schedule everything on the weekends in advance, and also like kind of maintaining my personal like to-dos and errands like over the weekends since I'm not there. But
Gotcha.
so like kind of switching, I love what I did as a consultant, but I just wanted to do it locally, and I get to kind of call my own shots instead of listening to my clients bitch at me all the day. So yeah.
Gotcha. What's next for your career? Where are you headed?
Oh, probably in the same kind of area. I think eventually I want to go back and get my master's degree, probably like an MBA or something, and like go into engineering management or IT management, which I'm kind of on track for. So just kind of going up the food chain. But yeah, like school is definitely on the plate. My mom is so scared that I will never go to graduate school and be the lowest ranking of my siblings, considering that all of them have graduate degrees and doctorates. So my mom's like, you need to get your advanced degree. And I'm like, I'll do it when our Secretary of Education isn't a dumbass. Can I say that on stream? I guess. Yeah, I should. Yeah.
Yeah, you're fine. I was told once that the rule is I can say anything I want. I just can't take off my shirt. So it's essentially what someone told me I needed to know to not get banned on Twitch. I was like, that actually wasn't a problem in this context, but thank you for that advice. No. So we'll talk a little bit about community. Have you had experiences in your life where you found it more difficult to fit into community because of who you were?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, no, you're fine. Have you had any experiences in your life where you found it harder to fit into community because of who you were, whatever kind of community you were trying to participate in?
I guess. I mean, I always feel like I just don't fit in naturally, and like part of the reason why I probably hate working is I feel like I'm always intruding. I feel like I'm like a burden. So like I don't know, I don't feel like I fit in like naturally. Like going to going to networking events, I've always felt super awkward. Just like kind of putting myself in conversations where I wasn't like invited to like join. So fitting that, it's a really interesting question, but I guess it's always more comfortable to be like part of a community that you kind of have something in common with, or like comes naturally to you to talk about. Like networking is always like teeth pulling for me because I feel like I'm always asking for something and have nothing to give in return. But yeah, I think my identity, I think being born here and like speaking the language has helped me better assimilate, obviously, and like be in communities. And but so like that was a big advantage for me. But just kind of like pulling on like some parts I don't use. I like use part of my identity to like fit in. Like I don't love like it's gonna sound really weird. Like I don't really feel like I fit in sometimes with like the Asian community because a lot of like I don't feel Asian enough. It's kind of a weird feeling. Like but like I just don't, and like sometimes like our priorities like a lot of the time sometimes aren't the same, and like just like topics of conversation are very very different just because the way I was raised to like assimilate with American culture, and I didn't really grow up with a lot of Asian people in my like life other than my family. So yeah, I guess it depends on like the community and what I'm looking for, or like
Sure.
what the community is offering, things like that. But yeah, I just kind of read it, the situation, and go with it, and like kind of get a feel of the vibe of the people. I think that's really the most important thing to me about like communities. Like I vibe with the people in that community. Like there are communities where I've tried to like be a part of that I thought I would like fit in better, and just surprisingly haven't. And it's mostly because of the people. Like I just don't like the vibe or that I'm getting from them.
Gotcha. Fair enough. What do you think? What do you think are some of the elements that go into creating a community that does include people?
I think just kind of, I think listening is the most important part. Like a lot of the communities I've kind of rejected is just like not listening, like, or like not like understanding perspective. You don't have to like have personal attachment to someone's perspective, but I think in order to like really feel like welcome into a community, you need to recognize that, you know, that is a possible situation. And even though you haven't like, you personally haven't experienced that, but you can see why things like are different for that person, you know?
Sure. Fair enough. So on that note, let's pivot and talk a little bit about the server, which is something that I've done with every mod that I've talked to.
Okay.
How long have you been a member of the server?
I have been in this server since almost its creation. I think I joined in February of the year it was created. Probably like I think when I joined there were like 12 people in the server. So
Gotcha.
a very long time since its inception, essentially.
How long have you been a mod?
I have been a mod, I believe, as long as mods have existed. So, that's probably somewhere around the, you know, 2.5 year mark now.
Gotcha. Fair enough. That's what I thought, but I actually wasn't sure. I just knew you were a mod when I entered. There's some people I don't know how far back it goes. What about Boston Gamers has made it a home for you?
So Boston Gamers, I think, was really unique because I guess like it was easier for me to fit in or like feel comfortable because it was like a smaller amount of people at the time I joined. So that was kind of an advantage that I have that we don't really have anymore. We're such a huge community, and I love that we're a bigger community. We're expanding as well because it's like we're getting more perspectives. But I think that was part of the reason why I stayed around, just because like I made personal relationships here. With a lot of people that, you know, I still have today. I'm expanding those relationships. You know, you, Caleb, you know, we talk a lot, and you know, you joined I think a year and a half in, so that's really fun to meet new people as I kind of discover it. Just like the community was like just felt really non-threatening and like just kind of like a safe space. You know, it was not over sexualized. It was not like, oh, like a lot of it is about like being with queer gamers, but also that's not all we talked about was being queer in gaming. We talked a lot about other things, and you know, that's how we spawned a lot of our channels, like deeper discussions into that, because we just like get into all these different subjects, which is really really fun to talk about, and that I think are important to talk about, that, you know, I couldn't sometimes feel like I could engage in other communities. So like that kind of kept me around too. And then you know, we're doing more like real life in like events and things like that, and getting more involved with like local community here in Boston, and just like it was just felt really really comfortable. And so just kind of stuck around, and you know, expanded those relationships with people that I was building, and here we are today. You know, it's kind of incredible. And you know, me and some of those other people still reflect about those like really early days. But I'm just so impressed when I look at, you know, our PAX presence, and like our PAX, you know, how many people joined like during that season, how many people joined throughout the year as we can promote different like charities and streams like that and do different events. And you know, it's incredible how, you know, diverse our community is in like in every aspect. So yeah, definitely it's been a journey, and I love it. I love this community.
Fair enough. That's a good complete answer. So I'll make a silly pivot to a question, and I hope my audience will forgive a little bit of mirth. But I was promised that there would be a PowerPoint presentation prepared
Oh
for the big
no.
question of the evening, which is, Michael,
Oh
who
no.
is the cutest mod?
Raise your hand in Twitch chat if you're a mod in watching this. They're all cute. They're all the cutest. They all have their own individual cutest qualities. Everyone's perfect. I love this mod team.
See, I was promised. Hednisk says the correct answer is tech team.
Suddenly our stream goes down. Everything's black.
See, I was promised when I joked about asking you this question that you would not cop out, and you just copped out. And
Caleb, I'm not gonna lie to you.
Not surprised.
Caleb, I'm not gonna lie to you. I really wanted to make that PowerPoint presentation, but I completely forgot I said I was gonna make the PowerPoint presentation. You should have reminded me like yesterday, and I would have spent all day today making that presentation.
It's way more fun that I didn't remind you. That was on purpose, because now I have the upper hand, which is how you.
Oh God, you manipulative! Oh God. No. Look what you've done to me.
I think all of the mods are cute is probably the better answer to commit to the record.
All of the mods are cute.
Oni says, drag her, Caleb.
I mean, I had a vote in getting all in stating the mods, so of course I think all of them are cute.
Fair enough.
That's how you play this game, right?
So if I wanted to get the drama, I should ask if there's a standing mod that you blackballed.
That I what?
That you voted no on.
No, I'm a very positive person. I don't really vote no on anything.
No, I'm totally kidding, of course. All right.
It's actually you, Caleb, because you wear fake glasses.
You had to get that in there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Didn't do it. I made sure you're still wearing the glasses.
I was gonna say, you checked the stream first to make sure you could get away with it, and that I didn't fake you out. No,
yeah,
perfect.
You real glasses wearer out there know that these glasses are fake and that he's just mocking us.
You know what? I'm telling you, I'm gonna send the Mateo Lane skit later.
I watched it. I listened to his podcast now because I didn't realize he had a podcast, and then I found out that he had a podcast, and I'm like listening to the episodes from like 2 years ago. But I'm just like, oh my
God. So, on a more serious note, what are your goals for the future of the server? What do you think you want to happen next?
Oh my God, that's a lot, because we've made a lot of progress in like 2 years, just like kind of being a community that's just kind of got it together locally and just but like, you know, the growth we've seen is far more than I ever thought we were ever going to become. And like, especially like now that we're doing a lot more like local fundraisers, we're really embracing the virtual nature of the new normal that we live in. And like, seriously, some of the ideas that you guys come up with, because I'm going to say I do not come up with a lot of ideas for community engagement, so I apologize. But I think you know, I would love to continue to really support some of the more local LGBT and queer, you know, nonprofits in the Boston community. God knows that there are a lot, and like a lot of them, you know, need support. So that's like one of the angles of our community that I really love, and I do like try to participate in more and more. I think, you know, once we kind of get more into the like new normal, and maybe when we can actually leave our houses, the in-person meetups I think were really great, and I think that was a really unique opportunity for a community like ours that isn't just strictly online, to kind of get to know each other and kind of find a new circle of a new social circle that you know, they could actually feel like they belonged in. But I think the future is, you know, we'll probably kind of like maybe subdivide into like more local kind of, because right now like the Boston community is huge, right? And we're very spread out, and actually we have a lot of people who aren't in Boston either. So how we can kind of rally some of those more local people to kind of get together with people around them and kind of form that same like in-person social bond that we can do here in Boston in a more, you know, urban setting.
Sure. Great. I think that's wonderful. So, to wrap up with sort of a last section, what have you been playing in the great days of COVID lockdown? What games are in the library right now?
All right. I've been playing a lot of Final Fantasy 14, so that is like my number one game. I've been playing. I played it in like beta and like in its early days, and then because of school I quit, and then because of my job I quit, and then like since 2016 I've been playing like nonstop. I haven't unsubbed at all since like for like now what for 3-4 years now. So love that game. I love Final Fantasy games in general. I've played almost all of them. I still have a few to tackle. But I should probably use my quarantine time to do that. But yeah, so 14 MMO, great game. Here's a not shameless plug, but I wasn't paid for to do this. But if you want to play it, there's a free trial that goes all the way through the first expansion. Now
we are not sponsored.
I'm not sponsored,
we
but
wish.
Square Enix, listen up. You know, my generation's always talking about the side gigs, so Square Enix, hook me up. But I've been playing that. I'm ashamed to say that my boyfriend and his friends got me to play Fortnite, and I kind of got a little bit addicted to that. Not like addicted where I was like, I'm gonna steal my parents' credit card and buy V-Bucks, but like it's fun to kill people. And so I was playing a little bit of that. Starting to play a little bit more Civ 6. That's but it's always that conundrum of we have everyone in my parent game available to play at that time. Let's see. I actually recently got back a little bit into Overwatch after like a year hiatus because of that whole Hong Kong situation. So still learning like the new meta, but getting back into Overwatch a little bit with some friends that I play with, usually from Canada. What else? Paper Mario, Origami King. Not 1,000 Year Door RPG, but it's cute nonetheless. And everyone who's trying to compare it to 1,000 Year Door, I'm sorry, but Nintendo has no obligation to make another 1,000 Year Door. Recently, I've also been playing Crash Bandicoot on my Switch because I love those games. And now with the PS5 coming out and the new one coming out, I'm excited again. What else? Last of Us 2. Me and my boyfriend are slowly playing that like together, where he'll mostly play and I'll watch, but I'll hop in there sometimes when he's died too many times. That's actually some friends and I got to like a Minecraft server together, so we were playing that during early quarantine. But that we kind of like wrapped up and just kind of saved the server and like closed it down because we were losing interest. But yeah,
that's quite a list.
Yeah.
Do you have an all-time favorite video game, even if it wasn't on the list you just gave me, or if it was?
Oh my god! Like one game, or can it be a franchise? Or
I'll allow a franchise.
I mean, obviously Final Fantasy. I think it's a great franchise, even though 15 wasn't great in my opinion. But you know, I think they can redeem themselves. If not, maybe. But I think, yeah, they're just those games are so good. I love Square Enix.
Fair enough. That's awesome. All right. Well, I think we're hitting near time to wrap up. So I want to say thanks to you, Mike, for talking with me tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah, of course. I really appreciate you subjecting yourself to my interrogation, even in the moments when it was cruel. As always, there are a lot of people that go into making these things, and I try to thank them all because without them, BG Bios doesn't exist. Zach, who is Hednisk in the chat, amazing, runs the whole technology part of this, streams it, clears up audio issues, all of that sort of stuff. I'm like lost without Zach's help. Oni reads and gives commentary on my outline every time I do one of these.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
I have said before what I'll say every time I do this because it's true. If you need an editor, there's no better choice than Oni. So thanks to them. I really appreciate it.
I hope Oni like highlights all the like criticism in like bright pink, because I can imagine him doing that. Be like, this is bad grammar, pink right through it.
They actually have been very kind to me in their edits, which I appreciate. I also just want to say a general thank you to the mods and planners, because they consistently have helped me develop and pull off this idea, from like pitching it in a voice chat when I thought everyone was going to be like, you're insane, to like actually helping me make it happen. I appreciate all of them. And then the biggest thank you of all to our audience. Thank you for coming tonight to watch and
thank you
chatting
for spending your Saturday night watching me talk about myself.
So thank you so much. With that, I guess we'll go ahead and prepare to sign out. Do you have any final words for everyone, Mike?
Live your true self every day. Like if you see me online, don't be afraid to say hi. I am usually like not super involved in general chat because, oh my god, general chat, you guys just fill that up every day and I can't keep up. But yeah, I am excited to meet more of you. If any of you ever want to play Final Fantasy 14 with me, just give me a holler and I will figure it out. But yeah, thanks for listening to me. Thanks, Zach. Thanks, Oni. Thanks, Caleb. I know you take too much pride, like too much enjoyment out of like interrogating us, but you know, I'm glad that you're getting your kicks.
I gotta get something out of it.
I hope Matt breaks those fake glasses.
All right. With that, I guess we sign out. Thanks for coming.
Oni. I just read his Twitch chat.